tuned to Evergreen Media Network. I am Cindy Schwartz, and this is the Patient Partner Show. My co-host Jeannie Roller and I are talking about healthcare issues. The podcast is also on Spreaker, so look us up on that. Jeannie, today we're talking about the nurse's oath. So the RN nurse's oath, we've heard so many times as patients, as people in the healthcare community, the doctor's Hippocratic oath, do no harm, those kind of things. But nurses also take oaths. And specifically today, we're going to talk about RNs. We know that nursing assistants can be certified. I believe now they call them home health aides if they're not certified, but don't quote me on that. I don't know exactly. Also, licensed practical nurses. So there's the licensing in that. So they would have oaths as well, we're thinking, and but specifically RNs. So talk about that, Jeannie, about what the oath the RNs take and why sometimes this gets skewed. Do we know that, or why we think in our minds that it's being skewed from the care that we've seen and been received?
Well, yeah, I know from things I've saw that it is skewed, but basically there are 9 components that make up the oath. A lot of people think of it as the Florence Nightingale Pledge, which is where it comes from.
Okay.
That the first one on the list is devotion to humanity, and it is a nurse should be unwavering in their dedication to the well-being of all individuals, no matter what, regardless of their race, creed, economic status, whatever. They should not. That should not make a difference to a nurse. We know that sometimes it does, unfortunately. The next one is compassion and empathy. Nurses are supposed to approach their patients with kindness, understanding, and empathy. I think, Cindy, we both have met some that have not.
Yes.
There's, yeah.
Sadly, yeah.
And number 3 on the list, Cindy, is respect for dignity. They're supposed to uphold the dignity and the privacy of their patients, recognizing that they are more than just a medical case. They should recognize their autonomy and that they are individuals. This is the big one, Cindy, that gets violated time and time and time again. They don't believe that unnecessarily exposing a patient's body is a violation of a patient's bodily dignity. They do not recognize that, a lot of them. But it is, because if you shouldn't have your bodily parts exposed, then why are they doing it? So that's the big one. And number 4 is they're supposed to be the advocate for the patients, especially when you're sedated. They are supposed to make sure that you are kept safe and that no one is taking advantage of you, which I say that allowing a patient to be improperly exposed is not being the advocate for the patient. I think, Cindy, that this also goes with that if a nurse sees something wrong being done to the patient, then they need to speak up and out, because they are supposed to be the protector of the patient. I know a lot of times that doesn't happen because they are afraid to, but still they're supposed to have the patient foremost and uppermost in their mind. The next one is integrity and ethics. They're supposed to be ethical. They're supposed to be honest. They are supposed to have accountability and a commitment to patient confidentiality. I've seen far too many of them not having this standard. Lifelong learning, they have to recognize that nursing is a lifelong learning journey, that they constantly need to improve skills and knowledge in order to provide the best possible care. I hope that they do. I know here in Indiana, every so often they have to get their licenses renewed. Hopefully that is part of this lifelong learning process. Number 7 is they're supposed to be able to work with a team and communicate well with the team and be respectful of that team in order to bring the best care to their patient. Hopefully they do. I don't know. Reflection and improvement. They are supposed to be committed to self-reflection and improvement. They're supposed to learn from past experiences, both positive, negative, challenging, to grow not only personally but professionally. I know that in the case of my husband, that probably did not happen, that all the mistakes made by those RNs, I doubt if they learned anything. And the last one is they're supposed to safeguard the traditions. It's supposed to be a noble profession, rich with history, and they're supposed to pledge to honor and uphold the traditions and the values of nursing.
Right.
So, I mean, these are some pretty basic things, but they're all as important as each one in the list. There's none more important, I don't think. I think they all are equally important.
Yeah.
I don't think you can get rid of one and say you're good, because ultimately the nurse spends the most time with patients, more than most doctors, especially in a hospital setting.
Right.
So you really depend on them to do the best job possible.
I totally agree with you, Jeannie, and it is a noble profession. It still is to this day. I mean, kudos. I couldn't do it myself, so kudos to any nurse that's out there that is him or her is doing a phenomenal job, because it is a tough job. And you're absolutely right. I mean, how many people have been brought around because of really good nursing care when they weren't facing the optimum, healing, if you will, but because of excellent nursing. So absolutely kudos. It's a shame to see that not happening in situations. I get it where people can be overwhelmed in their profession. That's any profession, a trucker, garbage person, and I'm not belittling anyone at all, a teacher, what I do here, media, anything like that. You can get overwhelmed. It isn't the patient's fault. It is tough some days to, realize that, take a deep breath and, something's wrong here, either in your situation or whatever. It's just a good creed. All of the things that you spoke about across the board. I mean, in some situations, I have to wonder where that went. I do get it that patients nowadays can be more vocal because we have more access to different things online or whatever, and patients can get out of hand. I totally agree that they can, and also because of the strong medications and stuff that are just difficult to navigate as the person taking that kind of medicine. And I'm not making that as an excuse at all. I mean, there should be respect on both sides of this argument, certainly in the nursing profession and certainly in the patient avenue, if you will. Patients aren't supposed to be beating up on nurses and doctors and all this kind of stuff either. So it's just good to bring it back and listen to what actually is the creed that nurses are working under, because it is a noble profession. And I've had phenomenal nursing care from people that I wasn't on my best day. I'll say that. And thank goodness for nurses that are that good. And doctors too, but we're talking about nurses in this podcast. So, I mean, kudos to them. But, when it goes wrong, sometimes it can be really, really wrong. It's sad. So, good for you for bringing that in, Jeannie, because we do have to, it's like any job that you have, you got to be reminded of, this is what good customer service is. And that's what this is, too. It's customer service, what good customer services is, what good management is. So, that's a big deal in any aspect of a job or, facility, whatever. That all plays into what the team is. And I agree that the nurses should... we've talked about whistleblowers, and that's like they're going to a guillotine when they speak up. I mean, in my own personal situation of why we started this podcast, there were 3 specific nurses that told me they knew the things that were going on that I had said happened to me. And they said, yes, we do know it. And administration would not listen to them as far as what the stories that they were saying. I'm not mentioning any facilities, hospitals, people, or whatever. And they were aghast. And as far as I know, those 3 decent nurses went to other facilities because they weren't going to work under the guys that they had to, and they tried and couldn't get anything done. So, we know how that works, too. I don't know why it plays out like that, but sometimes it just does. And I think, you know what, Jeannie, talking about it, it's not just you and I, it's other people around the country. I mean, if you see something, say something. You know what I mean? And if you're helping the next person, that's why we do this. That's what we try to help the next person so it doesn't happen to them. On that note, stay tuned to Evergreen Media Network. them.